There are more ways to celebrate than ever before at the Jeep Celebration event. Hurry in for great deals today on the only brand that lets you go anywhere and do anything. And right now, get $1,500 total cash allowance on the purchase of a 2022 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4. Don't miss this great offer. Go to Jeep.com to find your local dealer. Hurry into the Jeep Celebration event today. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 5/2/22. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
Hi there, I am Adam Kibas. I am here. This is another episode of my podcast where we analyze desire. We are still in the pandemic. It is a cloudy October day in Turkey, in Ordu, in Turkey, on the Black Sea region, on the Black Sea coast. Yesterday we talked about history. I think this will probably be rushed too fast through this, so I will some sort of repeat and extend about this very important topic, the historic development, the genetic development, but only briefly. I mean, I'm not quite sure whether I will make a couple of episodes about his history, about how these perceptions of racial purity or whatever that they might be, that they are ridiculous, however ideologically problematic. And then what we talked about is love. We tried to separate desire from love. This is a very important topic as well, where I think that we will some sort of continue there because it is important, yet firstly because it makes for everyone sense. Everyone will immediately come to the conclusion that love is something beyond just physical attraction. This means more, of course, it means more, but however, it is still sexuality, intimacy. This is what I try to argue is still part of love, so you cannot exclude the other from the one from the other. Of course, what we can talk about then is what is sexuality? Is it just the coitus, or goes it beyond this? It is, of course, one thing you would argue. It is some sort of intimacy, emotional intimacy, something you want to experience with someone else. Of course, we know the sex workers and so on. This is something we will have to talk about as well, but one end at a time. One thing which we some sort of rushed through, which I rushed through, is this military development. So what happened? I mean, with these genetic codes, I mean, why is it not accurate to say, firstly, in a social Darwinistic approach, it is not accurate that say that always those people with the good genes some sort of survived. I brought up the example of wars. This is, of course, you have to be aware that back in the antiquity, in those old days, people would not come much around, whereas in the Roman Empire it was possible. So in the Roman Empire, people were way more mobile. This then later changed in the Middle Ages. So this means, in that sense, there wouldn't have been much genetic diversity, because people would mostly not leave their community, would be confined in community. This would have some sort of hampered, in a way, evolution. This would have hampered the development, because more sooner or later everyone would have been married. It was banned in the Middle Ages, but it is some sort of, you can see this in some countries where marriage with cousins is allowed, and then you see some sort of all retardations, or people, children are born with all kinds of retardations and so on. So this is a big issue, and this was indeed an issue in the Middle Ages. Because you could not be just so mobile, and war, in that sense, war, and in its hideous form, in rape, was an integral part of of genetic distribution was an integral part of how your genes were spread. So human history, genetic history, human evolution is indeed intertwined with violence, and assumably this is not only in the Middle Ages, but as well as back in day, right from the beginning. Evolution was always, or you can assume that evolution always went forward violently. I give an example. For example, when the first Homo sapiens arrived in Europe, they, of course, met the Neanderthals, so they had to vie for resources, for scarce resources. Some claim this went some so smoothly, others say violently. But however, this is something you always see in the ape, among apes as well. These clashes between clans, they are violent. This is about children, this is about rape, and so on. So this is an integral part of human history. So, and violence and wars, it was back in the days, wars, it was pretty much common that in wars rapes happened, mass rapes happened. The only thing is that it was just not reported, so it was very much common, or it is very likely common, especially in the Middle Ages and later with all these wars in Europe, that the average woman in Europe was raped many times. So this is not this is something we have to be aware of as well. The next thing is there some sort of way in social Darwinism so that you could some sort of select, so that only the good people would find each other? This is what we argued with beauty, that only the attractive females, and this would be then womanly females, which I said that if women some sort of choose their partners according to physical appearance, because they want to protect their children, or if they choose their partners according to what is good for their offspring, then men obviously will do the same as well. And this would mean that you as a man would rather choose a woman with big breasts. Why? Because she then could breastfeed your children. We have a lot of data where breastfeeding is considered very positive for children. So it is psychologically and emotionally very positive, breastfeeding. There are enough research on that, but as well as we have to mention, there are enough research which mentioned, well, it does not make a difference at all. However, but it is assumably, and you have archaeological artifacts. One of them is the Venus, where you have a woman with big breasts and a womb, where you assume, and she was assumably some sort of a sex goddess, so you assume that this was some sort of considered, even in the previous ages, this was considered firstly as feminine, as attractive, as well as very advantageous, especially when the resources are scarce and so on. So women with big breasts. And the second big issue was, this is what you see as well as which is verified by archaeological artifacts as well. I mean, broad hips reduces the risk of child death, reduces the risk that a woman dies in childbirth. This was indeed a very big issue, because birth was always very painful. It came with the evolutionary development. So birth became then later very painful for the woman, and then of course, if a woman had broader hips, so it would some sort of reduce the risk of dying in childbirth. So this would then mean that men, if they wanna be interested in a healthy offspring, and if they would be interested that their offspring would be raised by their mother, then they would look after women with big breasts. and broad hips, and then we assumed in a social that which is very sadly, again, I have to repeat it, social Darwinism is in its form very hideous. It is despicable, hideous. It was used by a lot of racists. It's still used by racists as well as by the Nazis and so on. However, this perception still persists to this very day, that you some sort of had a development, had a pure development, in a way a Darwinistic development, so that only the best of the best chose each other. And then you would of course assume, why didn't we have a lot of, if you want, muscular tall man and woman with big breasts and broad hips? Well, obviously it is not. It is rare. Obviously in society it is rare, but still to this very day, if you only watch on Instagram, on all those photos, it is still a beauty ideal. Women with big breasts are being considered feminine, beautiful, attractive, and they draw a lot of attraction, as well as our fixation to the female ass, to the female hips. This is very well known. Man are again, you only have to watch on social media, so there is some truth on that. However, why could it even be happen? This is what we want to ask ourselves. Could it be happen that this was possible throughout the ages, that only the best of the best could have chosen it? And one thing I brought about is war, that in war you cannot really choose who is the best of the best, because in a war, either you are short, either you are weak. Human beings are not well adapted to their environment. This is how we should actually start this or some sort of repudiate this belief. Humans in general, they are not well adjusted to their environment. This is what Gehlen, German anthropologist, actually said, that human beings are Mängelwesen. Humans, some sort of, are inferior creatures. This means that they are not adapted to their environment. They don't have for example, have no resistance against cold. They don't have teeth, for example, to eat raw meat, and so on. So humans need tools, and therefore your physical abilities are some sort of thwarted by your ability to make tools. This is very important. So from the beginning of the ages, if you see on military history, this was partially not the ability or physical ability, rather the ability of making tools, the first swords. There are actually a lot of history about swords. The science and mastery how to make a good sword. This was indeed knowledge. This is something which went beyond the physical, which went beyond just mere appearance. And of course, protection is something, or that a woman would some sort of seek protection. Of course, this is true, but on the early ages, and I think there is even data when the first settlements became in Mesopotamia thousands of years ago. The community, and this meant the community you live in, gives you some sort of protection. The family you live with gives you protection. So this, you are not living in the woods anymore. You are not surrounded by pardon me. You are not surrounded by wild animals anymore if you live in the city. However, you are surrounded by people. Humans are very live in a community. They live with other people, so it is rather family. This is to this very day, and we talked about this as well. So that as a woman, or you rather have your family to take care of. You have a father to take care of. Of course, men are being chosen about their characteristics to take care or to be able to take care of women. However, it was not that drastic. because there was early settlements, women still could make a bad choice, if you want, without having to fear for their life. So women could, for example, do up with a weaker man and still could accomplish something. And again, because of this intellectual ability, because that humans are not well adapted to the environment, they always needed to come up with ideas to some sort of make it work. This starts with how do you build your home in order to protect your life from the seasons and so on. And in a community like in the first communities in Mesopotamia and what later Plato as well as wrote about was that there was only a special caste of people who actually did all these fightings, those soldiers who actually fought all these wars. They were later rewarded. This is where the nobility drives its roots from, however, but it was not that so clear, or it was not that all women would some sort of go for the man. However, and of course, in every war we talked about with rape, with technological development and so on, this does not mean that always the best genetic code was some sort of given to the next generation, because everyone can swing a sword if you're short, if you're weak, whatever, or everyone can shoot with a rifle. I think one of the best example is the rifle, the industrialization of war, because then you only need to pull a trigger. You do not have to be strong. You do not have to be some sort of in a way if you want have these ideal features what a woman would some sort of seek in a man, and yet you still would win the wars. You wouldn't be the strongest, and so on. And the same is of course vice versa. This is what we will talk about as well. So as a man, it is not so that you would only go for those ideal women. There are a lot of emotional indicators, especially in a community, if you live in a community and so on. I think one of the key components here is family. The family some sort of gives you protection. You are not alone in this world. This is the reason why this some sort of is not very accurate, and we will talk about this. Actually, I don't know whether we will talk about this in the future, but humans or human evolution is, I think, and I will have to of course prove it or argue it if you want, is of course intertwined with violence, with rape. We have a lot of examples actually in history that there is a lot of there was a lot of violence. One example, one indication is of the diseases, as many soldiers, for example, when they would march through a country, through a continent, they would always spread diseases, and through these diseases we know partially that it came to exchange diseases for which then people all over a continent or a country became resistant. So this is another indication. So immunity against some diseases is actually an indication that or that people have mixed genetic codes and so on. So this is of course interesting, and this is, but we should keep in mind that firstly, human history is the history of violence. This is pretty much clear. We have a lot of indication for it, and secondly, that it is not so clear that it is rather an ideology which is not founded in reality, that we would always choose, or that only the best of the best would choose, and then and then breed the best offspring. So this is rather some nonsense derived from eugenics, and has nothing to do with reality. And the second thing we will some sort of recap, this is love. I think this is very important because it was indeed difficult for us to separate it from desire. We said desire is something which you have individually, which is some sort of your individual craving. You want to satisfy your own need. You don't care about the others. We say, I argue, or we will have to argue that we some sort of have to get away from the object, but rather really see human interaction. However, in desire, no matter what it is, whether if in your social environment, for example, we said blonde women are being considered as valuable, as manly. However, you desire her for this purpose, but there may be many purposes. So whether you just want to prove it to yourself that you're a man, that you're potent, this is again in accordance with the society. This is what everyone demands. However, the other way around is something being considered as negative, when women would, for example, openly state that they only like muscular, potent man, then these things would be immediately considered as slutty, as something despicable. So because this is not expected, this is not in the female gender, and this is some sort of a contradiction, especially if we consider what we have talked about, the gender of Aphrodite, this over-sexualized woman, which is assumed knows a lot about sex, which is assumed has a lot of suitors, yet still when she has some sort of openly announces that she wants only a certain type of man, manly man, strong man, which would be then her counterpart in that sense. So an over-sexualized woman would crave for an over-sexualized man, but yet society some sort of chides her for this, calls her a whore. This is very, we have a lot of examples, for example, with celebrities who make those statements are mostly considered whores and so on and so forth. However, and we said that love cannot be an object. So, or I argued it because I think love always demands a response. You need someone. If you love someone, your partner, then this love has to be given back, or you need to have a response. Love is not only about your own satisfaction, but as well as you have to consider the need of your partner. You have to make compromises. The easiest way to think about this is if you live with someone. This is especially if you have never lived with someone. This is rather can be considered annoying because you some sort of feel yourself watched. If you love someone, then of course the opinion this person has of you is very important. You still some sort of wear your social mask. You still want to show yourself in the best way. This is if you some sort of hook up with a girl, she always sees the best side of you. She does not see you. So, for example, at home, bath and fart and so on. She does not see you at home eating. I don't know, in your shorts, pizza, and this is of course way more different from how you treated her, for example, last week, where you all went for dinner and you had perfect manners and so on. So it's not always the same. So if you're at home in your four walls, you some sort of assume that no one is watching you, so that you can some sort of do away with social etiquette, some sort of these dark rooms which everyone has, and which you some sort of hear in his story. Everyone has that, and then when you then live with someone, then you feel yourself watched. You feel yourself judged. You want that the partner you love has always the best opinion of you because you want that she likes you and so on. So this may lead also discomfort. And if you live together, of course, you have to make compromises. This is, for example, spending. You cannot just only satisfy your need. You cannot just go ahead and buy yourself an expensive sports car which has no back seat or whatever. So and so on and so on. So love always demands that you have to consider the needs of the others, and it goes beyond just sexual intercourse. But again, it is partially sexual intercourse, because desire would be, if I desire just having sex with an attractive woman, then of course my satisfaction ends when I jerk off. Whereas if I love someone, and of course then I have a desire to be with this person, but I as well as have a liking on the existence of this person. I like being with her. I like that she feels great around me, and if this happens, then you of course have an interest that she feels pleasure during sex with you as well, because you want that she likes you, you want that she loves to be with you, and so on. And this is some sort of, if you want, love demands from you that you go beyond yourself, that you think about other people as well, that you care or emotionally care about other people. Love is, if you want, a garden where you always have to nourish it, have to water it, so that things grow there. And it goes, and love, of course, can teach you. It is, if you want some sort of interaction, and this is why I think it is very important to some sort of emphasize that love needs sexual relationship, if it is in that sense love between partners, between you live together. Because in a relationship, if you are too much, if you are, for example, friends, if you are a friend, let's say you are a best friend, then of course you do those things as well to maintain a relationship. You, for example, if your friend says something mean to you, you some sort of readily forgive him or her. So in order to maintain the relationship, or if your friend has some faults or whatever, so you do this in a friendship as well. But friendship is in our understanding, it is not physical. It is an emotional bond you have with someone with whom you grew up with, someone whom you share your thoughts, your fears, your anecdotes, whatever. However, but there is a difference between friendship and a partner. So your friend, or hopefully the wife you are with, or your wife or your girlfriend, that you have a different relationship to your girlfriend than you have to your friends, and this difference is sexual, is emotionally intimacy. This is, which I would say is the difference between you and men. I mean, especially among male. If you are, for example, in a male group, then you are some sort of always, you want to be the man. You always present yourself as the man, as and so on. So people mostly do not see the other side of you, and this is then confined to your girlfriend, to your wife, who then knows your if you want, your thinking, how you act, and so on. This is as well as because you are all around. Yes, you are. Mostly your wife or your girlfriend knows you when you live together. So in all aspects and so on. Because, for example, it is very difficult if you want to wear a social mask 24/7, or social etiquette, if you only want to present yourself as, a special kind of person. You will some sort of get exhausted by this, and then in your home, in your safe space, if you want, then this mask wears off, then you show, if you want, your real face, and the person with whom you share intimacy with, then she knows this. And this is why I think we have to make a difference between love and relationships. It is necessary, because relationships are, as well, friendships, if you want. Let's be concrete. Friendships is something you have for the long term as well. I mean, friendships or good friendships, these are people who celebrate with you, who enjoy your successes and you enjoy their successes. So true friendships, I mean, this is rare. True friendships, they are mostly, if you wanna believe Aristotle, mostly among true friendships, good friendships are mostly among people who have some sort of, if you want, certain mental not mental, but certain attitudes, virtues. I mean, I only know the German word for it, erhabene. It has been called in the Necromantic Ethic, where he where he talks about friendships. So I only know the German words for it. So people who are some sort of superior. Well, I have to Google the translation for erhaben. However, this is rather only certain people have the ability to form good friendships. This is a common perception in the antiquity. This is what you have in Plato as well. So people with special dispositions can only lead society or be some sort of people beyond all others. This would be the philosopher king in Plato and so on. So this is very common theme in the antiquities. However, it is indeed interesting. You have to ask yourself, does it apply to love as well? In Plato's Symposium, it is being applied to love as well, and in friendship. So you have to have a special disposition, special virtues, whatever, where you can really enjoy love. Love is some sort of supportive. This is what you see. But again, be very cautious with with this antique Greek text, because there is some openly there are people some sort of openly advocating for pedophilia. This is rather hideous. However, this was some sort of very common. This was in the homoerotic era, I repeat. So we will therefore not go too much into detail with the antiquity or with Plato's Symposium. However, but one reoccurring theme is that only a few people are capable for good friendships, for love, and that you have to have some special dispositions to that. However, we will some sort of figure out or try to answer this as well. Is it true? Well, we would agree not so special dispositions in that sense. No, let's answer it right away. I mean, we have a lot of such psychological statistics, and this psychological statistics indicate, or it is pretty much evident, that you have mostly friends, that your friends are around you, or that those people whom you call friends are mostly people you grew up with. This is something you can easily show on Facebook. So if you are someone who has been living in your town, in your city all along, and if you have never left your town, your village, whatever, then you mostly have people you grew up with as your friends. These are people with whom you went to school in Austria or in continental Europe. The kindergarten. So you went from kindergarten, then you went to school, then from school from primary school to secondary school, and then you probably went to work. This is when you separated. However, in Austria, where I grew up from, in rural Austria on the countryside. There, this is actually very common. So you some sort of spend your time, you go with the same people in primary school, secondary school. Then some of these people become workers. Some of them continue into further education. You go in the same business school and so on. However, and then you all this time you are surrounded with these people, and sooner or later, even if you in the beginning were not very close or friends with someone, you became friends because you were so together all this time. This is actually very common, and this comes down to those people you call on Facebook or whatever, your friends and so on. However, we said about this in our analysis about the millennial age that Facebook is rather superficial and so on. So some people add other people as friends despite the fact they only know them fleetingly. However, and this is backed by many sociological inquiries if you want, but you can make a very easy analysis as well. And if you are some sort of socially loose, we have the other extreme if you want as well. So if you have rather socially loose context with other people, then you might have a lot of friends on Facebook, which some sort of hides that these are not really close friends and so on. However, so it is some sort of distorted, and the same goes for religious communities. If you belong to a religious community, this is especially true for the US. I mean, I'm talking about sociological research here. I've never, or I don't know much about the US. However, and there it is evident that, for example, Catholics and Protestants, they always stay in their respective spheres, or if you want, Methodists, Baptists, and all those religious branches. The church is some sort of the center of socialization. The Sunday or Saturday church is some sort of the center of socialization, and as well as all these youth programs in the US. The church is way more invested in youth programs. Their early socialization of people, of young folks, starts through the church, and they of course are surrounded by the same people who share the same belief and so on. And the same is true for in other religious communities as well. So you some sort of your religious belief and so on determines whether you live with, and you rarely intermingle with other peoples from other religious groups, because this then starts in the church. This goes in the school, because let's say you live in a Catholic community. Let's say, give an example, somewhere in Canada, you are French Canadian, you are French Canadian, you are Catholic, you are not Protestant like the English majority. So you're a Catholic. This means you go to Catholic churches. You are socialized by the Catholic youth corps, and there are a lot of things like first communion, firmung, and so on. You are socialized there. Your friends are from there. You speak French. You speak French with these people, with your friends and so on. Then you go to school. This is probably a Catholic school, or this is a school in your neighborhood because of the church, because that you can be close to your church, to your community. You live together. You live probably in the same neighborhood. The school is near the same neighborhood. In the school are mostly Catholics or French Canadians, if you want. So you speak French, you are among them, and so on. Later on, later on, some of them will probably become workers, and there again, with where people know each other. This is how I'm talking about experiences in rural Austria, where I had, so that you then get a work by someone whom you know, either through the church or through someone knows someone, he's a good guy, and so on. So this means that you some sort of get a job there, still stay in the community, still stay in this French French Canadian community in our example. So, and then others may go to school, and in school, or others may go to take further education, let's say in university, and in university again they cluster together again, those French Canadians or those English and so on. They all remain together, stay together, and this is some sort of where you then stay and remain socialized, and then as well as with people marry, of course, then other among each other, if you want, within your religious or cultural group. Why? Because you are surrounded with all those people you speak the same language, French, and so on. So you would not marry outside, because this community bond is very strong, because you want to be around your friends and so on. And mostly the wife or the partner you chose for your life is probably some sort of, in a way, part of this community. This is actually what pretty much very happens. This is something you can easily detect in rural Austria, or how many of those peoples actually married someone or have children with someone with whom they knew previously, with whom they lived in the near vicinity, with whom they have cultural bonds, and this is the same. You can detect the same in the US as well, and this is one of the reasons why there is no, or rarely, some sort of intermarriages between let's say Catholics and Protestants. Of course, there are religious differences. I mean, some say those religious differences are there's a giant gap between them. Yeah, of course, but it does not happen. And even though, if you are not very religious, not very religious, meaning that you, of course, consider yourself as Christian, but you do not go every Sunday to church, so you are not religiously Christian, but you are culturally Christian. And this is very common in continental Europe, for example, where people do not attend church every Sunday, or where it is rare that especially young folks attend church every Sunday. However, despite the fact marriages between Catholics and Protestants are still rare, because of these rares are rare. This is not very common because of the socialization, because that you are being that you are into different spheres and so on. So there is not much interchanging. This is I think indeed very important, those socialization, and then you are surrounded with people. This is a very important thing which we will talk about later, so that your desire, your love, or your possibility of love is some sort of confined through the bond there is of your social sphere and so on. So if you want so that you some sort of choose those people whom you are around with, or that you some sort of choose the society over, or that you choose your social peers over some thrill and so on. We will talk about this the next time. This was Adem Kevas from Ordu in Turkey. We are still in the pandemic. Nothing has changed since yesterday, sadly, and I hope that you all are doing fine, that you take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself, and then we will all hopefully get through this pandemic healthy and safely. Bye.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.